must be in the wrong seat again.
To be late. Getting fancy, eh? Whoops. Whoops.
Yeah, but mine usually comes right away. It's supposed to be. You must have it. I don't know. Maybe not. Test. I have a red light, but I seem to have sound.
Yes, you do. You always have sound, Chair.
Okay. Well, there you go. Welcome to Aurora's Committee of Adjustment meeting. I'll start by introducing the committee members and staff. I'm the committee chair. My name is Grace Marsh, and the remaining members of our committee are Tom Plamondon is our vice chair, Roy Harrington, and David Mango. Secretary Treasurer with us tonight is Justin Leung. Our planner is Marty Rokos, and our committee secretary is Sarah Murray. This public meeting is being audio and video recorded. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information are being recorded according to the Municipal Act and the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This will help our town clerk prepare accurate minutes and to create a record that is available to the general public, including on the town's website. Questions about this collection should be directed to the town clerk. Please be advised that the reports being considered tonight are available on the desk at the front here. Should you wish to receive notification of any of the decisions of tonight's meeting, please complete the appropriate form. The owners and the agents will be automatically notified. For each application that will be considered tonight, the following process will occur. I'll briefly outline the purpose of the application and then invite the applicant or agent with an opportunity to make a presentation. However, one is not required. It's the applicant's decision whether they wish to speak or let the application proceed on the merit of the information we've received. Following any initial comments from the applicant, I'll invite members of the public who have an interest in the application to come forward and address the committee. Those members of the public who wish to speak must clearly state their name and address and sign the corresponding request for notice form on the table at the front. After completing the form, please hand it to the Secretary Treasurer. Each individual may speak only once on an issue, and once discussion has commenced in respect of a motion, no further presentation shall be made. Please ensure that all questions and comments are directed through me as the chair, and if relevant, I will request the appropriate person respond. It should be noted that the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to any questions or comments should the committee feel it's appropriate. We'll now commence tonight's meeting, so I'll ask if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest. Thank you. Seeing none, thank you. I'll ask for an approval of the agenda.
I so move.
Thank you. Second. David, thank you. All in favor? That carries. Confirmation of the minutes of our last meeting, meeting 1705, took place May 11th, 2017. A motion, please.
I'll move, Madam Chair, that the minutes as revised and circulated, I understand, just before this meeting, be approved as corrected.
Thank you. A seconder? Just for clarity, in case you have the prior copy, it was simply a matter of changing the nature of my pecuniary interest on one item, so that's been corrected. It's the rest of the minutes were fine, so I'll call the vote. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. So our first application tonight is minor variance application MV 2017-08AB Carlini, 60 Center Street. We do have a recommendation in front of us from staff this morning that this be deferred because there are outstanding matters to be resolved. So the owner is going to be required to provide an updated OLS survey for further review by staff. So could I have a motion to defer this application, please?
I so move.
Thank you, Roy. Second?
I'll second.
Tom, thank you. All in favor? That carries. So we will not be hearing the application on 60 Center Street tonight. Thank you. The next application before us tonight is minor variance application Ross, 120 Gurnett Street, file number MV 2017-20AB. Application A, the applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 221378 as amended respecting to allow a reduction in interior side yard setback to allow construction of a detached garage. The property in question is in a special mixed-density residential R5 zone. Section 11.2.2 of the zoning bylaw requires minimum interior side yard setback of 1.2 meters. The applicant is proposing to construct a detached garage with a northerly interior side yard setback of 0.3 meters, thus requiring a variance of 0.77 meters. Application B, the applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of the same bylaw to allow an increase in eaves projection into the required yard to allow construction of the garage. The property in question is in a mixed-density residential R5 zone. Section 6.48.1 of the bylaw states eaves may project 0.7 meters into any required yard. The applicant is proposing to construct a detached garage with eaves projecting 0.92 meters into the required northerly interior side yard, thus requiring a variance of 0.22 meters. There were no objections from planning services, no comments from building services, no objections subject to conditions from infrastructure and environmental, no objections subject to conditions from Parks, Recreation and Culture, Central York Fire Services, no comments received. Electric Utilities in York Region had no objections, and Lake Simcoe had no objections, subject to a condition. Before we bring the applicant up, I've also been advised that all of the conditions under number 2 have been removed with the exception of one, which is the 4th bullet point in the report, that the owner shall agree to comply with the Aurora Tree Permit bylaw, but the rest of those conditions, part of number 2, have now been removed. So we still have conditions 1, part of number 2, 3, and 4 to deal with tonight. So is the applicant or agent in the audience for this one? Okay. Would you like to make any kind of a presentation or comment to us, sir? Yes. Please come to the microphone, state your name, push the button so we can hear you, and you're on.
I am William Ross, and my wife Jane, and we reside at 120 Gurnett Street, and we are the applicants and the owners of the property. We've lived there since 1985. I had understood that if I had an illustration or something, there was a way to project it.
Yep, the secretary will help with that, sure.
Okay, thank you. And I would just put it there?
Yes,
So could we start with that one?
certainly.
Thank you. Primarily, we're proposing to replace an existing garage. The garage is non-conforming, was built approximately in 1944. It was built into the grade of the yard at the time. It had a concrete barrier at that time built around it, which held the grade back. That barrier failed before we moved into the house, and the walls were crushing in. We never had an opportunity to replace the garage, but I did put gussets on it and shored it up to keep it from falling further. However, currently the bottom is rotting out from under it, and I've recovered the roof 3 times, but I don't know that I have enough structure on the roof to cover it again. So what I am proposing is that as I replace the garage, I also make an extension of 2 feet on the inside side and an extension of 6 feet at the rear. Those extensions are simply to bring the size, to make it appropriate to what would be considered to be a relevant size for current times. For a person on a daily use could pull a vehicle in, open the door and get something out of the vehicle and go to the man door of the garage and come out without having to step sideways in terms of coming out. The reason that the building department in their review and the planning department has considered it as the new construction is that I was unable, because of the condition of what was there, and there never having been a slab, and there not being now any sound part of any wall remaining, there is no opportunity for me to leave any portion of it there, so it could be considered a simple replacement of the same. So this photo shows the grade, this being the front of the garage with the driveway coming this way. It comes up at a very stark angle, and the grade increases as it goes back. The greatest amount of grade is around 12 feet. It starts around 12 feet and it increases as it comes on back to what I propose to be the 6 feet. From the original 20 feet to what will be the proposed 26 feet, there's only an incremental increase in the grade of inches. Most of the increase is in this area here. But as you can tell, this entire back wall is, except for inches, has the pressure of the grade against it. So there is a fair bit of engineering work I have to do in terms of that retaining wall at the rear. You may already have a good sense of this from the photos, and you can, if so, let me know. I'm not trying to duplicate too much. This is the front. This is the back. This is the existing grade. This is the proposed new height. The existing height of the ridge currently is only about here, and it goes down at about that angle, actually into part of the grade. And there's the existing garage, 12 by 20. There is we put an addition on the house, but the addition is that me? No, just but the addition, we did not increase the footprint of it all. This is the original corner, and there is currently at the closest spot of measure only 3'6" clearance in this corner. We have a deck here and we have a passage there. So I have said in my notes that were I to move the garage 8 or 10 feet further back, that still wouldn't relieve the issue of the application for the side variance. The only thing that would help that was if I moved it inbound. As you can see, if I moved it inbound, any garage door or driveway being already narrow and shared with the neighbor would not line up with the drive and really wouldn't be accessible for entry into the garage. That's why I've hoped to keep that boundary line and that boundary line in the same spot, thus requiring the minor variance. These photographs are not very good. That's the front. Of course, that's the existing. These are all gussets that I had attached about 20 years to keep it from falling over. The existing walls actually slope at about that degree inside. Everything has gussets on it, but it has stayed up. This is our inbound side. You can't quite see the rear corner. You can hardly tell, but the substrate of the roof itself, not just the roofing material, but the substrate of the roof itself is rotting out as well. This is a little clearer. This is the rear inbound corner. That's the grade. Current proposed new ridge would be a bit higher, simply because existing height you have to duck your head down to go in, to even walk in. But that's current grade. I don't intend to change the grade or drainage at all. And this is from the neighbor's side. These are simply holes that have rotted out of the garage. This is original siding. And also here, too, the grade increases at this point and goes all the way back up to the corner. I have a letter from, electronic letter from the neighbors. Our neighbor on that side owns the property on that side and on our other side. They own the two sides of us, and they are Jody and Marnie McGuire. So they support the application. They're satisfied of our arboricultural intentions. You don't get to say that word very often. For the bush, shrubbery, and a pine tree that are close. The pine tree does have a degenerative disease. It was identified by an arborist who was our previous neighbor 20 years ago. And I do intend to move that, which I've spoken to Sarah Tennant-Count about, and she says I will require a permit for that, but that is standard procedure, and she sees no problem with that. And she, as you had said, has removed any other concerns about vegetation once she's studied the site a little closer and our intent. And they feel they trust our judgment in treating the properties and respect of plant life. And you're welcome to reach them if you were to like. So I do have to get a permit from the, what is it, South Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, because they have identified a part of our property as being subject to an area that's under their jurisdiction. I really think, of course I would, that it's appropriate to rebuild this garage, and I think it's suitable to the property. I think it's suitable to the neighborhood. I think my proposals to increase the size of the garage are minimal. I think that my application is minor in nature, and I don't see any negative impact on any count that I can think of, and there's certainly nothing that we're not able to be very straightforward about in our application. Is there anything else? That's all I have to say.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Ross. What I'll do now is I'll see if any members of the public would like to address us, and then we may call you back for clarity if there's any questions. Thank you. Are there any members of the public that would like to address this application? Okay, seeing none, then I'm going to look to see if the committee has any questions or comments at this point. David?
Thank you, Chair. Basically, I just want you to clarify which conditions, if you just repeat. So which conditions in the staff's report you are saying are not applicable?
Yeah, so let me run through the conditions since Mr. Ross raised them as well. Condition number 1 is submission to the Secretary Treasurer of written confirmation from the Director of Parks, Rec, and Culture or their designate that the applicant has satisfied all of the concerns below and as noted in the June 6, 17th memo by Glenn MacArthur, a MacArthur municipal engineer, and that is specifically that the existing drainage pattern of the property be maintained.
Okay.
So that condition still exists as written.
Okay.
Condition number 2, the only bullet that now remains is that the owner shall agree to comply with the Aurora Tree Permit Bylaw number 5850-16 prior to the removal of any trees on the property. The Parks Director has cleared all other conditions.
Okay.
Condition 3 still holds, that there must be written confirmation from the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority that the applicant has satisfied all their concerns and that they pay the LSRCA review fee of $500, and that should any site alteration or development be proposed within the area governed by Ontario Reg 17906 under the Conservation Authorities Act, that the applicant will obtain a permit from the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority. And number 4, that all of the above noted conditions be satisfied within 1 year from the notice of decision. So all of those conditions still stand, David. Thank you.
Okay, so the condition, which is the bullet point, the owner shall agree to comply with Aurora Tree, becomes condition number 2. In terms of the numbering, it becomes the condition number 2.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Roy, any comments, questions?
I was going to ask the owner, how did you make out with the building department? Have they not any concerns? You're going to be awful close to the lot line. Did they not mention non-combustible construction?
They did not, and I haven't considered that, though I can see merit for consideration of it.
That's up to them to, and you and them to sort out. I just thought I'd mention that.
They did, I did submit to them drawings which were basically adequate for a permit, close, but they didn't review them in terms of permitting, as they just did the review for the Committee of Adjustment. I suspect if that comes up, that will come up during my application when they view my plans.
Actually, if you don't mind, as a chair, I am going to jump in. There were no conditions imposed by the building department, so they're happy with what it is right now. I do believe you will have to get a building permit, and then they will raise what they need to at that time. But in terms of the variance for tonight, they had no concerns expressed, Roy. No.
Good. Did you want to put one of the drawings up again, the floor plan? Could you put that up?
Sorry, could you put up the floor plan drawing again for us? Is this the one, Roy?
No, the next one.
The one showing your internal floor plan. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that small man door should open the other way. Just a comment. You can check that out with them.
That makes sense. It would provide emergency access out of the building.
But it should open the other way. Out. Should open out, okay? Yeah.
Okay. Just a comment, though, not a condition.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, I'm just going to make a real brief comment. I had a concern, or really more an interest in how he was going to manage the drainage here, because you're really, when you look at the photographs, which were in black and white in our package, and it was very difficult to understand exactly what I was seeing, so I stopped by. I mean, you can literally, from the back of where the existing garage is and where the proposed new garage is, it's one of those sort of, you can almost walk out onto the roof of this thing from the grass, but there is going to be a significant retaining structure that will have to be put back there. And then how the drainage works around that, I thank Mr. Ross for explaining it to me, because I was really concerned about what was going to happen to the water on the north side, closest to his neighbor. And looking at the way it was explained to me and the proposed pattern of management of eaves troughs and downspouts, he's actually going to improve it over what's there now. So that handled that question. And then the structural issues were also kind of in the back of my mind. There wasn't enough information there to process it. But looking at it, I think it's a tremendous improvement over what's there, and what he's proposing, I think, makes sense. So you did a good job. So what I will do, if there are any other questions or comments from the members of the committee, I'm going to propose that minor variance 1217-20A and B for 120 Gurnett Street in Aurora be approved, subject to the conditions as modified and discussed this evening.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, David. All right, all in favor? That carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Ross. The next application before us tonight is minor variance application Royal Venetian Investments, Inc., 400 Industrial Parkway South. The applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 221378 as amended, respecting to allow reduction in required parking spaces to facilitate construction of an addition to existing building on the easterly portion of the property. The property in question is in an industrial service M3 zone. Section 6.26.1.7 of the zoning bylaw requires for a minimum of 10 parking spaces for each 90 square meters of floor space devoted to public use, which is calculated at 98 parking spaces for a place of assembly. The applicant is proposing a building addition along the easterly portion of the subject property's existing building, resulting in 88 parking spaces for the property, thus requiring a variance of 10. The property is also subject to an application for site plan exemption. Planning services, no objections. Building services, no comments. Infrastructure and environmental, no concerns. Parks and recreation, no comments. Central York Fire Services, no comments. Electra Utilities, no objections. York Region, no objections. Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, no comments. And Metrolinx, no comments received. And we appear to have no conditions within the report. Applicant or agent present?
You do it? Yeah, you can talk. Good evening, thank you. My name is Tom Lahari. I am the project architect, and this is Mr. Joe Gallo from Royal Venetians Investments. Thank you for the description. I think it was quite clear. I just have a couple of things I might add. The purpose of the addition is for an extension to the existing kitchen facility. It's a one-story addition. It conforms to all property line setbacks and height restrictions as per zoning bylaw. As mentioned, it is the relief on the parking that is being sought. The proposed extension to the kitchen does not involve any increase in personnel staff, and Mr. Gallo will speak to that. And I guess my last quick comment would be the parking requirement of 10 spaces per 90 square meters under 6.26.1.7 is based on spaces for 90 square meters of floor area devoted to public space. And while I recognize that Town of Aurora, I guess, uses the GFA or the building area of the entire building, I just clarify that this is a kitchen addition and it's not accessible to public use. That's really all I have to add, and maybe Joe Gallo can speak to the kitchen staff issue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. In regards to the kitchen extension, we're going to have probably a reduction in staff, something that I've learned with the new equipment that we're going to purchase. We're going to be saving a lot of staff in there. So, for example, just with the ovens that we purchase, we'll probably reduce our staff in the kitchen on Saturday night when there's a wedding or anything, at least by 6, 7 people, right? Because these ovens, we're able to prepare the food the day before, 2 days before that, put them in the fridge on a roller of 80, trays of 80 people. They go into the oven and magic 7 minutes, it's out to perfection, right? So it's an amazing thing. So the reason for the extension is just so we could put this new equipment in there, but we're definitely not going to increase the amount of guests that fit in there because it's the same, the actual ballroom will be the same. And if anything, the kitchen on a Saturday night will be reduced. There'll be less staff to the thing. So that's really, just really the bottom line of our application.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just ask if there's any members of the public that wish to speak to this application. And seeing none, then I'll ask if the committee has any comments or questions. Tom?
Either, through the chair, I'm wondering if either the architect or the owner, I'm looking at some drawings that were put into our package, and I'm wondering if you can show me the limits of the existing kitchen on the drawing that I'm looking at, and the area that you're proposing to add to the back of the building. What I'm looking at appears to have a number of staircases in it, and you mentioned that it's a single-story building or an extension, so I'm just a little bit lost as to where the existing kitchen is, what the limits of it are, and the extent of the new kitchen. This is way too small. You can't even pull out. Then maybe if I just do it this way. So it's this one here, or any one that you want to use just to show us where that is.
I think it's the entire floor plan.
Either the entire floor plan or even the back section of the building. What's this one here? All right, that'll work. Yep, that'll work. What was this one here? Okay. Yep.
That long piece there. The 2 interior stairways are to an existing basement.
Okay.
It's a 1-story kitchen, but it's a full basement underneath. The addition is that piece right there.
Okay, so you're not displacing anything or any use of the existing kitchen with the new section there, right?
I'm not following the question. Displacing?
So you're not taking anything that's in the existing kitchen in terms of its use and changing it?
As far as its use as a kitchen, no, but we are going to be replacing.
Okay, interior. All right, that helps me a lot. Okay. So the capacity of the banquet hall is not going to change as a result?
No, with the exception of the kitchen, the capacity of the guests will remain the same as it is right now. So there will not be any difference in, with the addition, there will be no increase in guests because we're not increasing the actual ballroom.
Okay.
We're just, the kitchen is just to add the new equipment, to have more space in there. Because the way it is right now, the kitchen, it's a little bit dysfunctional, and the kitchen is the motor of the company of the banquet hall, right? So, but it will not add any new, it will not increase the capacity of the guests. And it'll decrease the staffing because of the new equipment that we're purchasing.
So question is to the staff. Should we assume that the 88 parking spaces as they are now, they meet the zoning bylaw requirements for the current building without the addition?
Through the chair, I wasn't informed about whether or not there's any non-compliance with zoning with the current building without the addition. But for this proposed addition, there was a parking brief that was submitted and reviewed by engineering staff who have no concerns with the amount of parking.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask that question in a little different way. You're probably going to answer it the same way. Currently, 98 spots. We don't know whether that meets current zoning or not? Is that what I'm hearing?
Madam Chair, I don't have that information with me. The planner who worked on it, I'm sure would have had that, but I didn't have that specific question for him when we discussed it.
No, it's only. Okay, I think I need a clarification then, because Tom and I are. Currently, is there 88 or 98 before the addition? Oh, yeah. See, everybody's saying 88, and I thought I read that there was 98 and there's only going to be 88. Sorry, are we misreading it? So I'll ask staff for some clarity, please.
Madam Chair, there are 88 parking spaces.
Okay, and so we're not losing any parking then as a result of the kitchen extension. It's just that the 88 that are there are not in compliance. There should be 98. Thank you. Apparently you guys understood that and I didn't. So I thought we were actually losing 10. But we're already 10 under, but we're not losing any more as a result of the kitchen. Okay. Because I will voice a concern. Over the years of living in Aurora, I've attended a number of functions at this facility, and anytime I went, I never got a parking spot. I don't believe there's enough parking as it is. I was actually very interested to see if there was any kind of a parking study in here in terms of what the banquet hall capacity is and what the normal amount of parking for that is. I think I would have liked to have had that information. I actually did also send an email to the bylaw department. Unfortunately, didn't get a response in time for this meeting to ask if there had ever been parking violations or complaints about parking. Because I usually I've often had to park in the, what used to be the Hallmark Cards parking lot and walk across the street. I've seen parking on the street. I've seen them in the church. I don't think there's enough parking as it is for the events that are held in there. At least that's my personal experience with it. So I'm going to just tell you now, I will be voting against this because I think there needs to be a review of the capacity of the banquet hall and the amount of parking that there should be for the guests that would be there at any given time. But that's within my purview, and I'm only one vote, but that's the information that was missing from this for me. So I will look to my committee members then if there's any, unless anybody wants to address my comments, maybe they can change my mind, but Tom?
Through the chair, I think we've had recently other applications where in the event of a shortage of parking, we have asked the applicant to pursue agreements with neighboring properties under the same ownership. And I wonder if the owner would consider some discussions with some of the neighbors, given the fact that you're basically in an industrial area where your events take place in the evenings where commercial and industrial operations are closed down and there's parking across the street and next door. I think that obviously you would have to establish those relationships if you don't already have them, but I think the chair is correct. I've been to that venue a couple of times and dropped people off at the door, turned around and gone elsewhere to park. I know this is not adding capacity. I asked that question, and it's not adding capacity, so you're not trying to upgrade your kitchen operations and take space out of an existing kitchen and add floor space to the banquet facility or the public part of the building. So that's reassuring. The fact that you're telling us that there might be less in the way of staff parking required is one thing, but overall you're still short, and it's a little bit concerning, particularly if you have the opportunity to try and negotiate some additional parking rights, if you will, from neighbors for certain hours, and then post signs on the property, overflow parking available at, give them an address and allow that to occur. I know it's occurring naturally now, but to come to the committee and ask us to look at a 10% reduction in parking or more, slightly more, is a little bit difficult, I have to admit, and I would concur with the chair that failing some opportunity to secure some parking somewhere else, I would have a hard time approving this one.
So I'm going to suggest to my committee members then that, and we don't often do this, but if we have feelings, we could entertain a motion that has a condition that since they're not taking away any spots that are already there, I just think it's a historical problem, that we strongly encourage the owner to attempt to enter into agreements with the neighboring properties to use their parking in their off hours in order to avoid any issue with being in conflict with Aurora's parking bylaws. I think it would just be a prudent protection for our bylaw services department. So I don't make the motions, but if anybody on the committee wanted to do that. David?
Through the chair, for me, it's not the motion, but I want just clarification from staff. So the experiences staff have and what is in the staff's report and study. What we have before us is a proposal for expansion of an area for kitchen, and that increases the building envelope, and with that requires 93 and 98 parking spaces. But from staff, I'm hearing that there'll be any issue officially in terms of the 88 parking spaces which are available now. Like from zoning, they've not mentioned anything that there's a problem with parking. So I'm trying to get advice from you, the staff, in terms of how do we deal with the members' experiences versus what is officially known about the parking situation at that site. Is it clear, my question?
Through the chair, the engineering staff who reviewed the parking brief that came with the application did not have any concerns with the amount of parking. Maybe for clarification, are you asking for suggestions on how to deal with parking, like the issues that have been brought up?
Is now 88 parking spaces. There's no issue with the existing building. There's no issue officially, but staff members of the committee that have experienced these issues with the parking. So what I'm saying is, will the decision in terms of members' experiences be considered or may not be considered based on what is in front of us?
So I think what David's probably asking, if I can reword it, is do we have the authority to put any kind of a condition? But even before I go there, I would like to comment that if staff has the ability to read a parking study of some sort or a parking brief, it would have been really helpful if we'd have got that too.
Yes, yes.
So I think we're struggling a little bit maybe with the lack of information here. Clearly our staff read something, and whatever they read gave them some semblance of that it was okay the way it is. But I didn't get to read that, so I'm struggling a little bit just on personal experience. So I know we can't put a condition, so David's not wrong about that. A condition is something that has to be fulfilled. So I guess I'm saying, can we put just a suggestion that they do look into some alternative parking formally in order to be sure that their events do not fall out of compliance with town parking bylaws. I think that's all I'm asking for, Dave, is a bit of a safety net that they realize, that we realize there's an issue today, as it is. So staff, do you have some suggestions on that for us?
Through the chair, yeah, unfortunately, there's no engineer here who can answer detailed questions about the parking analysis or the review of it. But certainly, if the committee members have a suggestion about dealing with overflow parking, that can happen.
Mr. Gallo, would you like to comment at all on this, or your architect? I think it's probably you, since you run the event. So, I mean, we understand you're not taking away any parking spots. We understand it's a kitchen expansion. You're going to have hopefully the same or less staff, so maybe a couple of less staff cars. I believe there's already a problem there. That's
right. I can't speak to the operation of the facility and what happens on a Saturday night and where people park and everything. Mr. Gallo will speak to that. I will just refer to briefly the preliminary zoning review that was done on this application, which states that based on the current zoning bylaw, the required parking spaces for the function of the banquet facility as existing is 98 spaces. So that's what the zoning bylaw stipulates. So whether they have an event that 100 cars show up, I can't speak to that. Anyways, Joe can speak to it.
Yeah. So a couple of things. When we bought the property, right? So, we bought the property, and the property had some problems. And when we bought it, we were in existence with the capacity was issued 25 years ago. So we bought it with the stuff that were there. And I understand where you're getting at, that is correct. But to be blunt with you is the extension does not really affect the parking or the increase in capacity. Then the other thing that we have also is something that I am addressing personally. We have a understanding with the church next door, right? Where, most of our functions are going to be on a Saturday night for weddings. And with the church, we have an understanding that if you look between the two properties, there's a connecting driveway. And we use so there's a connecting driveway with a pathway close to both buildings. So on Sunday mornings and whenever they have church in the mass, they use our parking because theirs is not sufficient, and then we use theirs on a Saturday night. That will generate, quite a few parking spots when we use both of them, and the walking distance is not. I'm also for the same problems, right? So the situation we're in right now is we bought a building, we need to do renovations, the kitchen is unfunctional. So So even for the town of Aurora, not because we bought it, I think it's a great place. It's going to be the only banquet hall in Aurora. I think that the community needs it, and we're going to have we're going to build a gorgeous banquet hall from an interior in that. And, you know, we're going to be, you know, so with the church, I think there will be sufficient parking, because even today, a lot of the weddings, they're not 500 people like the times where, like, you know, we're from Italian origin, like 10 years ago, right? Like today, an average wedding is 200-300 people, right? So between the two parking spots, even if you have 2 people, we should be fine on most Saturday nights, right? And you're going to get it where they are going. I'm being blunt, that they have to park. But this is with banquet halls. If you look at, we live in Vaughan. This is an issue like parking on the street. Sometimes it's an issue with all banquet halls, right? It's not just the one that we have, you know, in our place, right? So, but we are working with the church, so we do have an understanding in principle. We do have the convenience that we have a driveway between the two parties, and plus we have a walkway, so they could both park. Like if you go there Sunday morning, our parking lot is pretty full with their churchgoers that go there, right? So, and vice versa on a Saturday night, you know, we're going to have, so we do have an understanding between each other, right? So really the kitchen is just going to help us enhance that we have a practical kitchen to serve the guests when we're there, right? So it's, when we look at it from a, you know, I know we're increasing, when you're looking at the parking, so we're increasing the floor space, but in reality, we're not increasing so when they calculate the parking, they go by the whole floor space, not by increasing the, you know, so we bought it, that's the way it was, right? Unfortunately, I can't change that, right?
No,
But
that's okay, thank you. Do you know, just offhand, approximately how many parking spaces the church has, ballpark?
I think ballpark they got to have around 60, 70.
Okay,
So altogether will be 170.
yeah, okay.
So even if we have, you know, most people,
That's
when they
good.
go to a wedding, there's
Okay.
2 people in the car. So, you know, we're pretty good up to like 350 to 400 people.
Well, that's
right?
good. Thank you for that. It does give me some comfort. You
Yeah.
may want to formalize that agreement at some point, just
We
to-
have, I went
Yeah.
to, like before we came here, like I went to both neighbors, because, you know, I just wanted to make sure that we're both in understanding, right? That it is a benefit to both parties, that we use each other, and we need to respect each other's properties, right? So they're happy with the arrangement because, you know, even the church there, if we don't give them our access to our property, then they're going to have the same problem. They're going to be parking on the street and all over the place, right? So when we combine both and the understanding that we have, we're in good terms with one another, the risk level of the parking issue has been reduced. So really the extension of the kitchen is so for us to have, like when we have our guests come in there, we got to make sure that we have the capacity for us to succeed, right? Because a banquet hall is definitely needed in Aurora. We've talked to the mayor, to the councilors, to the staff. They're very excited about it, right? So we're just trying to improve that we have a great place to go to, right, within our community, right? So we're not doing anything to increase our sales, and if anything, it's costing us a lot more money, right, for all the equipment.
That's good. Thank you very much. Justin, did you have a comment?
Yeah, please, through the chair again. Sorry if you didn't receive that in your package. They did provide a parking brief, which was prepared by their architect. Another thing that just to let the committee know is that just recently a decision was made on the part of the CAO that many of the properties, if it's an ICI, industrial, commercial, or institutional, those planning applications will now be handled by the economic development side, by those planners. So Marty and I, we're not as, we weren't initially involved with this application. However, I was at the meeting for this one. We did have a pre-consultation meeting with them, and the parking was raised, and the issue with having that shared access with the church was raised at that meeting. And then I have been out to the site. There is an access point in the rear there. So that was something that was raised, and we did ask for the parking study to come with the application to be reviewed as part of the submission.
Thank you very much. Tom, did you have something, comment?
Thank you again through the chair. So, Mr. Gallo, thank you for those comments. Are very much appreciated. It's great to hear that the neighbors are working together. My one recommendation then would pick up on a comment that the chair made, and that would be to suggest to you that you formalize it. But even more probably important than even that would be to, and it might have come back through the other review, is that signs be posted so that people who don't frequent, and haven't used the facility. I know that guests of mine were worried because they did park in the church parking lot that their vehicles were going to be towed. So if there's no signage there that says overflow parking, please use, the church next door or across the street, and you can even, indicate at your own discretion, but at least people would then know that it is there and available. And I think people would use common sense if it was an event, let's say, that was taking place that you were hosting on a Sunday, for example, a lunch or whatever, that people would be cognizant that if the signs are there and you're going to go to the church, and if there's cars in the church, that you be respectful there as well. But some kind of identification there that allows people to identify, hey, if I do go there, my car won't be towed or ticketed or, vandalized by someone who's not very happy that my car is sitting there. And I'm prepared to make a motion, but is that all right? So I'm going to do a bit of a 180 on this one. And I'm going to recommend that the minor variance MV 2017-21 be approved to reduce the parking, seeing as there are no comments or conditions. So without conditions, however, I'll leave it at that because I think we've made enough comment around the table.
Do I have a seconder for that? A second. Thank you, David. All in favor? That carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It'll be a great place for all of us to live.
You serve good food, eh?
We serve great food, so we'll invite everybody to our grand opening.
Okay, all right. We're still on the record here, guys.
Lots of good folk
Okay,
too, eh?
all right. We're still on the record in our official meeting, so no problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, all right.
Much appreciated.
So just before I call for an adjournment, couple of items that I'd like to raise under new business. Good night, thank you. The first one is I see we have a note that council is moving forward with a replacement for our the fact that we're short a member. So we appreciate that, and we'll look forward to news on that in the very near future, I would hope. Yes. Secondly, Justin, I want to pick up on a comment you just made about a change in process, which means there may be alternative planners involved in some of these files. Not sure how the rest of the committee feels because we just heard this for the first time, but I'd like to suggest, please, that if there are planners other than the planning department that we're used to working with that are going to be the knowledgeable ones on these files, that they be required to attend these meetings. We do sometimes run into issues when we don't have because we don't have the engineering staff, we don't have the park staff, so we rely very heavily on the knowledge level of the planners that are here to advise us. So if you are not going to be the planner on the file in the future, we would like to have the planner present on those files.
If I could clarify through the chair, it's still the planners within, the economic section is within the planning department, so it's still the same department. And we have a practice where Marty's in attendance and he will review all the applications, and the other planners who did write it, they'll confer with Marty, so as opposed to having several staff attend. I just gave that to you as an update because sometimes there could be some more now some more detailed aspects of the application that we may not have been as aware of. But overall, we do make sure that we have a general understanding of each of them coming forward. And it's similar to the other adjacent municipalities that I've seen and how they conduct their business. Richmond Hill would be an example of that.
Okay, well, thank you. Just understand our concerns, and Marty's always been a stronghold for us, and we appreciate that. I just would hate to put him on the spot in a public meeting if he hadn't had the opportunity to completely review the files, so, because we do rely pretty heavily on you. All right, so anything else under new business? David?
Just to again repeat the reports. I think it's always important that you give us the opportunity to read the reports. I know the staff, they read the reports, they have their comments, but you also need us, give us the opportunity to read the reports, whether forestry reports about vegetation, cutting, whatever, replacements, or whether it's traffic reports, so that, you will have an opinion and can make a decision based on those reports, rather than just relying on what the staff are saying or they've written. Thank you.
I think in a nutshell what David's saying, and I agree 100%, time has slipped a little lately, and I felt that too. We all have day jobs, with the exception of Roy. Teasing. So sooner is better, and complete is absolutely better. And I know that you know that, but thank you, David, for raising it. There's just been kind of a few issues lately where it seems like we're not getting things. Even the minutes this time were pretty late coming in, and I know there's always reasons for that. I'm municipal staff myself, but the best you can do to give us ample time to read them, understand them, and ask our questions, we appreciate that. Okay.
It's just, I do try and practice to get you all the materials the previous week before the meeting, but of course, with staff here, with the workloads here as well.
The comment. I know it's a deferred report, but there's one thing which I noted, where's that report here? Okay, what I noted, just when you are rewriting this report, you sent an email which indicated no conditions, but in this deferred report, there are conditions. So just remember next time that there's no that discrepancy, this consistency.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. This is the
original comments to now say that she doesn't have conditions relating to that.
Okay, so we're going to look, when we do hear this one, I'm going to ask now that we get an updated status memo current before the meeting when we hear this, whenever it comes forward again. Because I've got a lot of paper on this one that...
Through the chair, the reason I did that was that the applicant was here, but previously I did speak with them, and I got a sense from them that they were possibly considering that they didn't want to defer the application. They wanted it heard today. So that's why I sent those comments to you as a precaution on that instance.
It does get confusing, certainly for me, when something gets deferred and then something changes in the meantime. I don't know if I'm reading the latest or the original. So I love your memos. If you just give us an update as to where things are prior to hearing it, I'd appreciate it. Anything else, guys? Okay, Tom?
So, Justin, so that I understand this correct, the request to defer came from staff. The applicant is here. You got the sense that they might not want to defer. When a motion then comes from here, can they object to the deferral, or how would that work then?
Through the chair, the reason The practice here at the town has been that the applicant makes the request for deferral. Now, we did have, and I believe you weren't here at the time, we did have an application, 251 Willis Drive. There was a minor variance there. And I think there was a request for deferral. And the applicant said, the applicant was requesting a deferral of their application. The committee did not rejected that option because they didn't feel that it should be deferred. So then the application was moved forward to be heard at that meeting that night, and where it was refused. So there was an instance that it was kind of the reverse, but yeah. I think that usually when a staff makes a recommendation in these instances, usually the applicant accepts it. I've seen it at Oakville C of A, that's the practice. However, here, in a conversation I had with them, they did ask, what if I don't defer? What will happen? And I think that was just, in my case, just a precaution that if they did want to proceed, that you did have sufficient information at hand.
The problem is, though, as the chair, I did not give that applicant a chance to speak to that. So
Yeah.
that's where I may have erred in procedure, and that may come back on us. So
Yeah.
if it does, then I will wear that.
Yeah.
I thought once we had a request for deferral, we didn't give them the microphone, because to me, that opens it up and everybody wants to talk. So you need to help me out with procedurally, if I should be giving them an opportunity to speak to it, you need to let me know that.
Well, through the chair, I'll give an update. Actually, just before the meeting, I spoke to the applicant again, and I think that they were more agreeable to the deferral request. They were more understanding. So I did have that previous conversation with them just before the meeting.
However, Justin, I think if a motion is made from the committee, whether it's the applicant or staff, to defer, I don't think, I think it's up to the committee to decide whether it defers the item or not. And that's happened to me a couple of times, where I've had an application and the committee didn't feel they had enough information and they deferred, and I had no opportunity to question that.
That's accurate. I know that there are other committees where it is the committee that's making those deferral requests, and we are a little bit different in that way. That's something I'm going to make a note of. I'm going to look into that in terms of future practices, and I'll speak to my manager about that too. But that's something definitely to look at. Thank you.
Just would never want a resident to say they didn't get their opportunity to speak at the public meeting.
Yeah, so regarding deferral again, I just want to mention about, because I've experienced different municipalities. So you recommend deferral, but then the chair opens up the file and gives the opportunity to the owner, to the applicant, and the applicant has to, even if the applicant has discussed with you already, he has agreed, but the applicant has to say, I'm asking for this file to be deferred. And then the chair with the committee, they concur with that and they move forward, or they say no, it needs to be heard. Even if the applicant you have already discussed, he has agreed, but you want to hear it coming from the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So clearly, there's different procedures in different places. So a clarification procedurally would be fabulous. We can wrap this up in this whole discussion as the committee has requested a clarification in cases of deferral, the process that should be applied. Whether it's a staff deferral or an applicant deferral, what's the process? So if you could get a clarity on that procedure, I think you can wrap this up in those few words on the minutes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Good point.
Okay.
I'll move to adjourn.
All right. We're adjourned. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Do you third it?